W.A.S.P, Michael Schenker, and Armored Saint in Tulsa, Oklahoma on November 6th. That's what we're going to talk about. First, everybody, thank you for clicking on this video. You've got thousands to choose from, and I really appreciate your making this choice. Okay, so I liked it a lot, but there were also some disappointments. And they're understandable, I think, but I also think they're worth mentioning. But let's talk about the positive stuff first. Oh, and I'm not going to tell you what songs were played. I'm not going to tell you exactly what the stage shows were like, because I hate spoilers. And if you really want to know that stuff, you can find other videos online in which people have recorded the entire shows and posted those if you really want to get it spoiled for you. So you can go do that. But I'm not going to show you any of it. Well, okay, just a little bit. All right, that was kind of a tease, I know, but I think our relationship has developed to the point where, we can do that. Armored Saint was the first band up, which surprised me because I thought that Michael Schenker would begin, because I thought Armored Saint was more well-known than the Michael Schenker group, but maybe that's only in the US. Anyway, Armored Saint started, and they played for about 50 minutes. They sounded great. John Bush's voice hasn't aged a day in 40 years, swear to God. And they gave a really nice range of material. If I counted correctly, I think they played something from from 8 of their 9 full-length studio albums. Armored Saint's stage show was pretty limited. They didn't even really do much with lights, and there wasn't much of anything in the way of, set decorations. But that was cool with me. I went for the music, not the show. And it sounded great. Everybody was spot on. And in case you're wondering why I'm wearing this while I make this review, Phil Sandoval played an LTD Era 1000 in red, no less, for most of their set. So I felt kind of validated by that, for having gotten one. The Michael Schenker Group. I wasn't a fan of Michael Schenker before this show, and it's not because I disliked his stuff. I just wasn't familiar with it. But man, I'm a fan now. The guy has a kind of friendly, goofy charm that just really translated well. And he is a hell of a guitarist, which is not news to anybody. He can shred, and he did, but he interspersed the shredding with, I hate to use the word feel, played with feeling, because it's so cliche, but I can't really think of another way, a more descriptive way or specific way to say it. So that's what I'll say. Lots of long fucking guitar solos. But because Schenker is so good, it was okay. Not once did I find myself getting bored with it or thinking, okay, let's kick into a chorus or something like that. Really, really good. And they played for an hour and 5 minutes, which, for a quote-unquote opening act is a long time. But it was great. MSG had more of a stage show, more colorful stage, more use of lighting than Armored Saint, and it looked good and it sounded great. Oh, and let's give a little bit of love, shall we, to Steve Mann, who did great. I'm quoting my brother, imagine being the other guitar player in Michael Schenker's band. Yeah, but he did great. Now, W.A.S.P, and let's start with the positive. Blackie sounded great. Man, he hit all the notes, didn't seem to struggle ever, and just sounded great. The musicianship was just spot on for everybody, and Blackie gave a lot of room to Doug Blair. In fact, Blackie and Mike Duda, the bass player, even left the stage for several minutes at one point so that Blair could just play. And he did great. He did some shredding of his own, which, by this point, I'm sure wasn't improvised. And he really nailed Chris Holmes and Bruce Kulick's solos. He didn't nail any solos from the songs that Doug Blair, had originally played on, however, because they didn't do any. But before we go there, let's keep focusing on the positive. W.A.S.P's stage set was pretty interesting. They used primarily foot lighting, which gave a really interesting and unusual vibe to pretty much everything. And yeah, they played mostly their big songs, ones that I won't tell you which ones they were because I don't want to spoil anything. And this is the last fanboy raving I'll do, I'll promise. Blackie has an astounding charisma. All he has to do is walk up to the edge of the stage and people just go nuts. You can just feel it radiating off of him. Even when he's just standing there with his back to the audience, not saying anything. Yeah, now we're getting to the not as positive. Blackie did not work to engage the crowd. He said about 50 words for the entirety of the set. 50 words in 3 comments. And I'll admit, I was disappointed because I'd seen video of him engaging the crowd at other shows on this tour, so I was kind of hoping for that. Didn't get it. But given that Blackie has worked the crowd at other shows on the tour so far, let's think about why maybe he didn't in Tulsa. Could something have been bugging him? Yeah, maybe. A couple of things. First, the night before in Dallas, Texas, W.A.S.P didn't get to play. They didn't get to play. Armored Saint did their full set. The Michael Schenker group did their full set. And then the fire marshal or someone shut down the whole show because the venue had oversold the show by about 1,000 seats. So if I were Blackie, or any of the 2,000-ish people who'd been at the Dallas show, I'd have still been well and truly pissed off at the managers of the Dallas venue. So there's one reason that Blackie might not have been in the best of all possible moods. The other reason was, and this is very contrary to my expectations, the Tulsa show was far from sold out. If I recall correctly, the Tulsa Theater seats 2,800 people, and just by eyeballing it, I'd say there were a maximum of 1,800 people in the venue. Now, was this because 3 legendary metal bands couldn't sell out a smallish venue in the American Midwest? Maybe, but I don't think that's probably the reason. I think that those many empty seats can be blamed far more on high ticket prices, prices that got much higher as the date of the show grew nearer. And I don't think that's the fault of the band. I don't think that's even the fault of the venue. Instead, we can lay the blame pretty much squarely at the feet of Ticketmaster and Live Nation. Now, maybe the bands have some say in what the face value of the tickets are, but they got no control over those things when they go to the secondary markets. And that's where Live Nation and Ticketmaster come in. Live Nation is, I think, the biggest concert promoter in the U.S., one of the biggest in the world, which means it can pretty much do whatever the fuck it wants, charge whatever it wants for whatever, and Live Nation is also a major secondary market of tickets. Not at all coincidentally, Live Nation and Ticketmaster are 2 halves of the same company. You see where this is going, right? Ticketmaster is unquestionably the biggest ticketing machine on the planet, which means that, like Live Nation, they can pretty much do whatever they want. They've pretty much got a monopoly on selling tickets. And in case you've ever wondered why the really good seats at shows seem to go so fast, it's because most of the time, Ticketmaster doesn't sell you those seats. Instead, Ticketmaster holds back as many as 75% of the seats at any given show for any given band and sells those things to secondary markets, which then mark them way the hell up and sell them back to you. And as we just said, Live Nation is a great big secondary market. Oh, and guess where Live Nation sells its secondary tickets through? Yeah, Ticketmaster. So essentially, Ticketmaster sells a zillion seats to itself and turns around and then sells those seats at 2, 3, 4, up to 10 times their face value back to you. I don't know how that shit's even legal. The day before the show, my brother, who went to the show with me, checked to see how many seats were available at the Tulsa Theater. We'd had our tickets for months. He was just curious. And there were only 5 seats available. But that's only 5 seats at face value. I think if he checked on Live Nation, he would have found hundreds of seats available at far more than face value. And I think that's why the show wasn't sold out. Because I'll be quite honest with you, I paid, what, 70, 80 bucks a seat, I think, for the 2 tickets that I bought. If I'd had to pay 160 or 170 or 180 or higher for those seats, I wouldn't have gone. Especially because I had to take a day off work, I had to rent a car, I had to drive all the way to Tulsa, which is 5.5 hours from where I live, and back, and I had to do all the shit to make sure that things back at home kept running while I was away. So if I had had to pay, scalpers prices, basically, Live Nation prices for the seats, I wouldn't have gone. And I think that's why the Tulsa Theater was so far from being sold out. So imagine that you're Blackie, having played so far sold out or very nearly sold out shows on, the first leg of the U.S. tour, and then having an entire show canceled because the managers of the Dallas venue were idiots, and then having an, at best, 2/3 full crowd because Ticketmaster decided to fuck us. Yeah, I can understand why he wouldn't be in the best of moods, not feeling particularly talkative. Aside from Blackie's reticence to engage the crowd, there were 2 other things I'll mention. One was the stage show. Now, I don't really care about the stage show. I go for the music, all right? But Blackie has said in interviews and even on the posters for the tour, they were going back to the beginning with the W.A.S.P show, like the classic W.A.S.P shows of, the 80s. But if you were expecting raw meat or, raped nuns or whatever the other amazing things were from the 80s and early 90s shows, yeah, you didn't get it. Not happening. Now, the stage set itself was pretty cool, and they did a few, kind of neat things that I'm not going to tell you about because, again, I hate spoilers. But if you're expecting a hardcore, blood and guts, 80s style W.A.S.P show, you're going to be disappointed. So temper those expectations, all right? But for me, that was a minor gripe. I went for the music, as I said, and there just wasn't enough of it. Blackie has said in multiple recent interviews they were going to play for nearly 2 hours, and they were going to vary the set to some extent each night, never playing the same show twice, throwing in some stuff they seldom or never played live before. Yeah, that didn't happen. The shows that W.A.S.P has played on this tour, as of the day I'm recording this video, October 28th in Las Vegas, 1 hour and 40 minutes and 16 songs. And that's 16 songs if we count all the songs in the medleys as separate songs, which we might as well do because they played the majority of each song. Okay. October 29th in Anaheim, California. 17 songs in 1 hour and 45 minutes. Again, including counting the songs in the medleys as separate ones. So, okay, we're getting better, right? We're getting more. October 30th in Tempe, Arizona. 17 songs in 1 hour and 50 minutes. Right on. October 31st in Albuquerque, New Mexico. I don't know how long they played, but again, 17 songs. November 2nd in Houston, Texas. 16 songs in 1 hour 35 minutes. November 3rd in Corpus Christi, Texas. Don't know how long they played, but they did 15 songs. November 4th in San Antonio. Again, I don't know the length, but they did 13 songs. November 6th in Tulsa, Oklahoma. November 8th in Chesterfield, Missouri, essentially St. Louis. November 9th in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. All 3 of those, 1 hour and 35 minutes and 13 songs. The same 13 songs. So the band seems to have settled into its set list. 1 hour, 15 minutes, and 13 songs. Now, clearly they could probably play for 4 hours, and that wouldn't be enough for we heavy metal entomologists. But, given that we were expecting nearly 2 hours worth of W.A.S.P. An hour, 15 minutes, and 13 songs? That doesn't seem like that much. So why the reduction in number of songs? Why the significant reduction in amount of time they spend on the stage? If I had to guess, and that's all I can do is guess, right? I'd guess it's for Blackie's voice. Because, as I said earlier, he sounded great. I don't think they tuned down. He was belting it the fuck out and hitting every note. And when you consider that he recorded most of these songs 30 plus years ago, that's pretty damn good. So, if they've had to cut down the set in order for Blackie to keep sounding great, I guess I'm okay with that. And if I had gone into the show expecting, 75 minutes worth of music, I'd have been happy as a pig in mud. Or as happy as a W.A.S.P fan who's loved that band for 35 years but has never seen them. So that's my review of the Armored Saint Michael Schenker W.A.S.P show on November 6th in Tulsa, Oklahoma. All three bands sounded absolutely great. W.A.S.P didn't quite deliver what they had promised, but what they did deliver was pretty damn good. So if you are a W.A.S.P fan in the United States, and you're thinking about seeing this band, well, first get tickets right away if you haven't already, so you can beat the fucking secondary market prices, and go see them. Because it's been 10 years or more since they toured the U.S., and, you better see them now. And let's hope this tour does really well, so we don't have to wait another 10 years. That's my review. Hey, thank you all very much for watching. You guys are awesome. And I'll talk to you soon.